A little more of an interview with Jeffrey Toobin. I recently sat down with Jeffrey to talk about his new book, American Heiress, focused on the kidnapping, crimes, and trial of Patty Hearst. You can find that on our website if you missed it. But since I had one of the preeminent legal minds in the country with me, who's written books on the Supreme Court and O.J. Simpson, we decided to shift gears. So when I watch you all the time on CNN, I say, I have so many questions about the Supreme Court to ask that guy. Now you're here. So can I ask a couple of them?
Go ahead.
Is Merrick Garland, the abomination, a one-and-done abomination, or is this going to be something, the after effects of which we're going to live with for potentially for years, if not decades?
Yeah,
I don't mean in terms of the decisions of the court. I mean the whole process that denied him even a hearing.
Right. I think the taboo against keeping Supreme Court seats open is gone. And the fact that the Republicans in the Senate very openly and unapologetically said, we're going to keep this seat open for a minimum of eight or 10 months is really a signal that these fights are going to be so ugly and so bad going forward that we could be looking at not multiple month but multiple year vacancies on the court if you have Senate control opposite political party of the president's party. You wrote, I think it was in the New Yorker once, that people who criticized Clarence Thomas for his silence and for suggesting he is a, for lack of a better expression, Scalia's poodle, I'm thinking of Tony Blair recently, are unfair. I'm in that unfair category. Why are my criticisms unfair? Because Justice Thomas has brought a distinctive philosophy to the court that is different from Justice Scalia's, and it's been developed through many different opinions. Justice Thomas, Clarence Thomas, is the most conservative justice to serve on this court since the 1930s, more conservative than Justice Scalia. And if you look at a lot of the big conservative decisions of the past several decades, whether it's Citizens United about campaign finance or the Heller case about guns, it was Clarence Thomas, not Justice Scalia, who first brought those ideas into the bloodstream of Supreme Court thought. Now, that doesn't mean you have to like those views. I don't share most of those views, but they are distinctive views, and it is not, ignorance. It is just very conservative thought. Didn't you write, I hope I get this right, I think you wrote in one of the stories that you were at some synagogue or something, and Scalia was speaking. Yes, I know the story. And what was his line? Something like, "I'm an originalist. I'm not a nut." Was it, that was intended to be humorous? Well, it was sort of. It was sort of meant to be humorous, but I think it made a larger point. Is that someone asked at this synagogue, how does your judicial philosophy, Justice Scalia, differ from Justice Thomas's? And he said, "I'm an originalist, but I'm not a nut." And by that he meant that Justice Thomas would be, and he's made this clear, happy to overrule decades of Supreme Court precedent because of his originalist views, where even Justice Scalia would have to say, look, we can't rewrite the whole Constitution. Speaking of precedent, you mentioned Citizens United a minute ago, 5-4, right? 5-4. It was 5-4. And some people think it's not quite Dred Scott, but some people think one of the worst decisions of modern time. Let's assume Hillary Clinton is elected and there's a 5-4 majority on a decent number of cases. How likely is it that a slim majority would overturn a slim majority on a case like this, which to Hillary Clinton's supporters is practically the Antichrist? Well, not immediately. But you would be, remember, it's not just Citizens United. There have been a series of campaign finance decisions basically deregulating American politics, saying that any sorts of limits on campaign fundraising, on campaign spending, on disclosure are unconstitutional. What I think you would see, and what I think you will see if there are 5 Democratic appointees on the court, is a process of allowing those regulations that exist to stay on the books. And that will gradually cut back on Citizens United and ultimately perhaps overturning it, but certainly not right away. Okay, let's end with my obsession. It is really the fact that there's a camera in virtually every state courtroom in America and that there are not cameras in the federal courtrooms puts me over the edge. But it doesn't put me nearly as much over the edge as having people like Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan testifying in their nomination hearing saying, yeah, I think I support cameras in the courtroom, and they were for it before they're against it. Is there one
decent argument for there not to be cameras in federal courtrooms?
Well, we started this interview talking about Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
I think Justice Sotomayor and Justice Kagan have Stockholm Syndrome being around their colleagues who hate cameras. I don't think there is a single good reason. The only thing I can say in defense of this justice's position is that they are very reluctant to tamper with the traditions of the court. They see themselves honorably as stewards of the court. But look, any argument against cameras in the courtroom that is based on witnesses or juries has no application at the Supreme Court because there are no witnesses or juries. They don't want the public attention. They don't want the public scrutiny. They don't want the ridicule that would come with close scrutiny of their behavior at oral argument. But those arguments are not good arguments. It's the public's business, and we should see it.
Am I going to live to see them?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Jeffrey Toobin.
If it makes you feel any better, neither of us will.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Doesn't make me feel any better. You can find both parts of my interview with Jeffrey Toobin online on his Patty Hearst book, which is great, and All Things Supreme Court. It's at greaterboston.org.